I feel like the biggest fights around money happen when people don't understand what the asset is. I want his 401k, or she's trying to take my pension. Why do you think he or she wants it? Or why does he or she want it? It's usually a misunderstanding, not seeing the full picture. The earlier you can see that full picture, the smoother conversations go just straight from the beginning.
Welcome to the Drama-Free Divorce Podcast. I'm your host, attorney and mediator, Cary Jacobson. Each week, we bring you practical guidance, real conversations, and expert insights to help you navigate divorce with clarity, confidence, and less conflict. If you're ready for a calmer, more empowered path forward, you're in the right place. Welcome back to the Drama-Free Divorce Podcast, where we talk about ways to approach divorce with clarity, confidence, and less conflict. I'm your host, Cary Jacobson, attorney and mediator with Jacobson Family Law. Divorce is not only an emotional transition, it's also a major financial transition. Many people suddenly find themselves needing to understand assets, investments, retirement accounts, and long-term financial planning in ways that they may not have ever dealt with before. And today we're talking about how to navigate those financial decisions with the right support. Joining me today, again, Amanda Campbell. She's a certified financial planner, a certified divorce financial analyst, and Amanda's been working in the financial services industry since 2010 and has focused primarily on divorce finances since 2014. She specializes helping clients, particularly women, understand short-term and long-term financial impacts of divorce settlements, especially those high asset cases where financial stakes can be significant. Thanks so much for being here again, Amanda.
Yay, thank you for having me. I always love doing your podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as I mentioned, you were here last year on episode 3. So thanks for coming back. And last time when we spoke, we were really talking about some of the nitty-gritty, but I'd really like for you to share, since we spoke last, if you've seen any new trends with the clients that you're working with.
Yeah, a lot has changed. I think predominantly housing has just turned into such a big thing, which I'm sure you see on the legal side too. Just the market has shifted so dramatically. So not only are we facing higher prices with housing, we're facing higher interest rates. Thankfully, couples can now assume mortgages, right? So when you're getting divorced, you can now assume the mortgage from the other party. That has been really helpful, but it certainly hasn't changed the landscape of, well, the house is probably worth now and it's tough to buy you out. So I think that has been the biggest shift since last time. You know, the house as the primary sticking point for most couples, you know, that is always something that I find myself kind of working through with my clients, you know. Why do you want to keep the house? Is it emotional? Is it actually financially the right decision? What's the background? I'm finding I'm having to have those conversations and instill that tough love a lot more than I used to.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to kind of get into some of the specifics about this because you mentioned a law that has recently changed. And so I know we have listeners kind of all throughout the United States, but this particular law happened in Maryland in October of 2025, which requires now lenders in Maryland to allow one of the spouses in a marriage who's going through a divorce to assume the existing mortgage. And so basically what I've been sharing with my clients in that scenario is they no longer have to refinance the loan and put it in their name, which had all of these extra costs associated with it. And, you know, they may or may not be able to qualify under that scenario. The good thing about the refinance was they could pull cash out oftentimes if there was equity in the house, right? To allow that buyout of the other spouse. The downside is that they were having to go from a 2 or 3% interest rate up to a 5 or 6 or sometimes even 7% interest rate. So that was making it more expensive. But now with the assumption they can keep the existing low interest rate. In turn, what has happened is they can't take that cash out. And so they're having to find other resources to do the buyout. So what are you encountering with your clients as far as like how they're coming up with that?
Yeah. So I've actually started having to strategize with retirement accounts more than ever. That's not wrong, right? I think that's actually very typical and normal, right? We use our working years to put as much as we can into our 401ks. You know, we are told, save to your 401k, save to your 401k. And it is the right thing to do. And you should be doing that, right? Collecting your employer match, doing all those things. No one plans for divorce. You don't go into a marriage thinking, oh, I'm going to get divorced. But along the way, you're saving to your retirement accounts. you're probably not building up just an individual brokerage account or a joint brokerage account somewhere where a dollar equals a dollar, because a dollar does not equal to a dollar in an IRA account, right? Like we have to add tax on top of that, because every time you take a dollar out of an IRA or a 401k, you have to not only take the value of that dollar, but add tax to it. You are going to be taxed federally and state on that dollar that you withhold. So yeah, I mean, now, without the option of a refi, it's just so favorable to assume the mortgage. My gosh, like why would you not assume it if you could? So without that refi available, yeah, we're having to look at, okay, if my buyout's $100,000, I probably need to trade $130,000 of IRA money for that same thing. You can't just put money back into an IRA either, right? Once it's out, you can keep contributing along the way, but you could never just put that full 130 back in. So I think, again, kind of back to what I was saying, it's just been a lot of tough love conversation about why do you want to keep the home? And those conversations, I think, sometimes are forcing women to really get serious with themselves of, am I making an overly emotional decision versus the correct financial decision? And a lot of times it is the emotional decision we're making.
Yeah, I would agree that it's typically, the emotional side of things. But then on the other side, they're having to find additional housing that may be smaller, that costs just as much as what they're currently paying, which is sometimes a really hard pill to swallow.
Totally. And I've been working with that too. So here's another thing that's kind of shifted in my paradigm is the idea of renting. I actually have a lot of clients right now who are, single women, 50s, 60s, maybe we no longer have kids living at home, or maybe the boomerang phase is done. You put the kids out in the world and they come back and then you kind of have to set them out again. Maybe the boomerang phase is done. Renting can be really attractive. You don't pay the property tax. You're not paying when the roof goes up. You're not paying when the hot water heater goes up. Also, if you don't like it, you can move. The idea of this, I need to have a house. I need to be building equity. I would say my paradigm on that, with the market the way it is, with the housing market the way it is, how expensive things have gotten, I have taken a full pendulum swing. That's why I always say financial planning is just such a living, breathing thing. It changes year to year, month to month. Right. Like the advice that was good a year ago is probably not good today.
Yeah. And I think my paradigm on renting has also changed. And not to mention all of the other upkeep. Right? Like that you have to do when you're owning, all of the repairs, as you mentioned, but landscaping and maintenance and snow removal and like all of that day-to-day stuff, or things, or what you were paying for someone to handle that.
Yes. And I talk my clients through that too. Like, hey, okay, you're a single woman in a house now. Do you really want to be outside mowing the lawn? Do you really want to be outside plowing the snow? And if you do, great, that's amazing. If you don't, those are real dollars out of your budget that you might want to allot somewhere else. But like if you have a house with happy homeowner costs, they have to be allotted. There's no other way.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know that you work with many higher net worth clients, especially in your financial planning side, where you work with people who have investable assets of over $3 million. Even at that level, what are some of the biggest misconceptions and mistakes that you still see people making in the divorce context?
That's such a good question. I see scarcity mentality. I think is just something that I still really see women struggling with. And it's not a mistake that I would say per se. So I'll kind of answer it in two ways. Even in high asset cases, high dollar cases, scarcity mentality really still exists for women. That idea that I don't have enough, or I'm going to mess something up, or I should get more out of this divorce because I'm going to end up, a troll under a bridge eating a peanut butter sandwich. Meanwhile, I'm showing you a plan, or I can show you a plan where everything will work out and you're going to be fine, right? I think the scarcity mentality, that mindset of we had more together, I will not have enough moving forward. So I think the mistake I see women make is just getting really upset, not talking to somebody, kind of paralysis by analysis, and just shutting down on the financial conversation, not wanting to have it, or relenting, just saying, fine, whatever he decides. And it's like, no. Like, we really need to look at your own picture, your own financial picture, to decide what you need and help to walk you through that scarcity mentality that 9 times out of 10 is just a story you're telling yourself. right? Like after you see the full financial picture, I can't tell you how many times when I've been like, oh my gosh, I feel like there's a weight off my shoulders. And that's my job, right? My job is to like flesh it all out for you so you can see it all in one place. But I think the biggest mistake is not working with somebody to show you that you're going to be okay, or at least not asking somebody if you're going to be okay before you get so deep down into the weeds that you start making decisions out of fear, out of avoidance, out of exhaustion. So, some of these conversations, you don't want to have them anymore. You get tired and you relent. So I think that's one that I see a lot. And that is from $1 to $6 million, right? That just the scarcity mentality and the exhaustion that comes from that.
And you mentioned other than obviously working with a financial, person like yourself to help kind of guide them, is there anything other practical tools and steps people should really be making when they're going through this? Like to know that they're going to be okay. Like what would be some of those initial things?
So I tell everyone, and this is whether you're going through the divorce process, starting it, or just happily married, you should know what you own and what you owe. I scream about this all the time. Yep. You know that. Cary's okay, I know. I scream about this all the time. Like whatever stage of life you're in, happily married, getting a divorce, whatever you're doing, sit down and figure out what your household assets are. Go and make a list. Okay, here are all of my bank accounts. Here are all of my brokerage accounts, Vanguard, Schwab, wherever. Here are all of my retirement accounts. Here are that of my partner or to-be ex. And here are the things I own jointly. We own jointly. Once you have a lay of the land, a lot of that fear around the unknown goes away. And the other thing that really helps with scarcity mentality is just understanding your cash flow. Right. Truly. Once you can understand how much money comes into you each month and how much money goes out from you each month, you can really easily see, oh, I didn't have to be scared that I wouldn't have enough. I have a little bit left over every month. Or if you do have a negative that's showing up, right, there's a deficit, what can you change? There's always a solution, but the solution is freaking out, right? That's never the solution.
Absolutely. And I do find that just learning really what that, I don't like to call it a budget, but basically, what's coming in, what's going out, so where all of those dollars are spent can really be helpful, because then you can look at that net worth and see how long is that going to last.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's just kind of financial planning 101, right? A net worth and a cash flow. And I know I'm kind of oversimplifying it in this conversation, but at the root of what I do with women, that's it. It's just understanding what you own and how we keep building that through cash flow, just so we can make sure that you live to be 100 and you're financially secure and empowered and you feel really good. But again, that does sometimes take some finagling and it takes work on your end, right? You could hire me and we could work together on your financial plan. If you're not honest about what you're actually spending each month, if you're not honest about where your money's going, I can't actually help. So it is lift on your end too.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned before, you and I have worked together on lots of cases. And I always find that when we bring in a financial expert like yourself very early, the entire tone of the conversation shifts, because you're able to kind of give that guidance to help someone who, may have that scarcity mindset. From your perspective, how does early collaboration with a CDFA like yourself, an attorney or a mediator, impact the process?
Oh, I love it when women come to me like right away. I have hired an attorney. Let's start working. Because that early education, that early financial literacy around the divorce process, the earlier you can get it in, the earlier you can start understanding, I feel like everybody is more calm. I feel like the biggest fights around money happen when people don't understand what the asset is. I want his 401k, or she wants, she's trying to take my pension. All right, calm down. Like, what is the asset? What's the value of it? And why do you think he or she wants it? Or why does he or she want it? I find that it's usually, I hate to say it, I boil it down to this, but it's usually a misunderstanding or someone's not seeing the full picture. So I agree. Kind of the earlier you can see that full picture, the smoother conversations go just straight from the beginning. Because we haven't jumped to a point of we're dissecting every little piece of our financial picture and getting upset about that one thing because neither of us fully understands how that one thing works. No, we have someone who's been explaining how these pieces work the entire time. I also think it manages expectations, right? Like, so if you come to me very early, I can kind of look at your full financial picture and say, based on Maryland law, it's probably going to shake out around something like this. Again, just that expectation management so that you're not going in with unrealistic expectations. Like I do sometimes have women say, I want 80% of everything. We manage that expectation right now. That's not going to happen. But I think, again, the earlier we can start to have those very real discussions, the earlier and more efficiently, more quickly we can get through those conversations. Because the money conversations are hard during divorce. They just are. They're not fun. No one's thrilled with how it goes. It's compromise. It is a compromise.
Absolutely. And I think from our side, on the legal side, whether it's mediation or, settlement negotiation, the earlier people have this information, the smoother the negotiations go, right? Because everybody's really kind of on the same page. What I see over and over again, especially in my mediation practice, is those people who come in and they haven't talked to an attorney or they haven't talked to a financial advisor or CDFA, and they have unrealistic expectations, right? Like, well, I made this money in the marriage and therefore it's mine. Whereas the other spouse may have spoken to someone else and then their expectations are not aligned, right? And so as a mediator, I'm often saying to that spouse who hasn't consulted, you probably need to talk to a professional so that everybody's on the same page with what the laws are and what the expectations are. It doesn't mean you have to agree to every little thing that, the law says. I have many couples who will forego, an asset or will just keep their own retirement because it's just simpler, right? But you have to have the information first and everybody be on the same page.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know a big part of your work in helping women feel financially confident, it's not just being informed, but it's also feeling confident that they understand it. What does that transformation look like for your clients? Those people who may have not been the CFO of the household, and now they are ready to take on that role in this next chapter.
Oh, it is my favorite part of my job. I say that all the time. My favorite meeting with a client is the one, and it usually happens, I say 12 to 24 months after a divorce. It's different for everybody. But I always say I tend to meet people at their worst. And that is not a negative thing. It's just, I'm meeting you when you're going through one of the hardest times in your life. And so often these women will come to me and say, Amanda, you must think I'm so stupid. I gave up my career to raise his children, to be a stay-at-home mom. Now I know nothing about our finances. I'm so ashamed of myself. I'm so embarrassed that I'm talking to you and you're asking me questions that I don't know the answer to. I typically start with that woman. And then after the divorce, again, 12 to 24 months later, there's a meeting that happens where we would be talking on Zoom and she will just say, I did it. I feel really good about all the decisions we made. I'm going to go on that vacation, or I'm going to buy that thing that, we were worried she's like, oh, I'm never going to be able to afford that thing. Sometimes it's as simple as I just want a new couch for my new home. Or I kept the marital home and I don't want that chair anymore because that's where he always used to sit to watch football. There's something that is meaningful to her. And we do have this meeting where it's just everything finally clicks into place. She feels really good. She's going to make that purchase. I always say that's kind of the start of her next chapter. And if you're listening to this right now and you're like, gosh, well, it's been over 24 months for me, that's okay. And maybe you just need to talk to somebody to have that confidence, or maybe it's right around the corner. But those are my favorite meetings. And it does happen for everybody.
I appreciate that because it's the transformation of not having that understanding and then being able to have the understanding and then feel confident about it going forward.
Yeah, to make a big decision and to approve your own decision, right? Like, yes, we're going to work on it together, but you going on that vacation, or you buying that couch or that piece of jewelry, that's you approving a decision. That's you being financially confident. That's fine.
Right. Absolutely. If there was one thing you wish every person understood before they started negotiating the settlement, what would it be?
Ooh, that's such a good one. If there's one thing that I wish everybody would know, that it's not going to turn out the way you think. That it's just not, right? Like, I have yet to work with a woman who all of the predictions that we ran through, all of the hypothetical scenarios, all of the cash flows, all of the net worths that we built, I have yet to work with a woman where the one we started with is the one we end up with. It is It's probably in the vicinity of, but it might not be exactly what you thought. So maybe you got more retirement money out of the deal than you thought you would, and maybe less. Maybe you didn't get to keep the beach house because we talked through things and gosh, that just doesn't make sense, right? Like things always shift. Again, I wish women saw that not as failure or not as something to anchor themselves to, but where you're starting at the beginning of negotiations is truly just a starting point. It's just a means to get the conversation rolling. It will end up somewhere different, but you should, again, if you have the right team behind you, it'll be the right thing for you.
Yeah, I like that. Just because I'm curious, are you seeing, especially with the clientele of women that you work with, are you seeing more women having to pay their spouse's alimony?
Oh, yes. The shift has started, and it is wildly fascinating. It's very interesting, actually. And yeah, there's a lot of emotionality around it. I think for the men involved as well. I have had a couple cases where the husband's like, I don't want alimony. I'd rather have more assets. I think the idea of receiving a check from an ex-wife was not settling well with him at all. And he was like, I would rather have more of an asset, and that was a discussion they had. It's interesting though, because that almost wasn't a financial consideration. That was a very emotional consideration. So yeah, I'm seeing that. And, it is an interesting shift for women too, where that wasn't something that I think was talked about. It was so very much stereotypical. Ex-husband pays wife. This new shift is like, okay, this is happening. I'm paying him. And it's tough in situations where, I'm working on a case right now. Mom was a stay-at-home mom for a while. They've been married for a really long time. She started a business. This business blew up. Like she literally started it in her bedroom. She is now wildly successful. Husband is successful in his own right. He has more of a 9-to-5 and she just has this thing at lightning in a bottle. Yeah. So now she's like, gosh, okay. I went from having a career, being completely dependent on him to like, am I really going to have to pay him? It's a lot. Those are the things that I'm like, I'm not necessarily equipped to have that conversation on an emotional level. Like that is, counseling, therapy, all of that. But it is interesting to start walking through those mechanics in a very real way as the wealth shift happens in real time for our generation.
Absolutely agree. I think those are some interesting conversations that we have with our female clients in that scenario, and they're just as difficult as the ones we were having with male clients. Sometimes I think even more so.
Yes. Again, like in this instance, she's like, but I didn't have money for a long time.
Right. Like, well, that brings me to another thing that you and I have talked about, which is, and I think we're seeing this so much with, content creation and stay-at-home moms who are doing TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. They're able to make a living, and even more so on these platforms, right? And stay home with the kids, but they're not necessarily treating it like a business. But that can definitely be a time where a post-nuptial agreement could be incredibly helpful because, you could talk about what's going to happen with the business and what, if any, spousal support is going to, take place. It's just something I don't think people think about or consider.
No, of course not. Like I agree. I feel like I've said the word post-nup more in the last 18 months than ever in my career because these things are happening now.
Right.
When the path to income is not so cut and dry and
absolutely not.
Right? Like there are so many paths to income now. And I just don't think the world has caught up yet. The world of divorce has not caught up yet with the paths to income. Not only that, I think societal traditional values are so far behind the 8 ball. So yeah, I think these conversations are really tough because, he's kind of sitting there like, what do you mean you made 6 figures at home selling aloe yoga pants? So yeah, I think it's all, the landscape is shifting. I do wonder from a professional standpoint though, like, I tend to work with female attorneys like you, Cary, and, I know we work with a lot of others. I do wonder how this new landscape of the wealth transfer to women, which is a real thing, $30 trillion are expected to transfer into the hands of women by 2030. I do wonder how our male counterparts in the same professional space as we are, how they're going to be able to keep up with those conversations because they're essentially going to be shifting into what we have been doing for the past decade and a half, right? Helping the men to feel confident around like, yeah, you'll be receiving alimony, but it's going to work. Like there is going to be this professional shift. I think that happens as well.
That'll be so interesting. Fascinating.
I'm kind of ready, kind of nervous. Like, I don't know. But it's fun. I mean, I think we're on the cusp of something really cool. Again, it's one of the biggest wealth transfers in history for women that will, in 5 years, it's happening, whether we want it to or not. So I think as women, we just need to be prepared, and we just need to have the right professionals in our team on our side, because it's going to rock a lot of boats.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be definitely interesting to see how those trends continue. So for someone who may be at the very beginning process of divorce, maybe they're at the contemplation stage, they're just starting to kind of get rolling, and they are feeling overwhelmed, right? Because they've not been the person to handle the finances. Are there 2 to 3 practical steps that they should take? You've talked about a couple. Get your net worth statement together, gather those assets, and then put together your cash flow. But anything else that people should be truly doing?
I think the other thing that I tell women to do is really just look at your household. How does your household run right now? Because the budget, cash flow is great, right? Your cash flow in and out. What's going on with your kids, right? So if you still have kids living at home, you can't just make a cash flow. You can't just look at your budget for yourself. You also can't take the full burden of the children on yourself too. Sometimes when I'm all right, let's sit down, let's walk through a cash flow. And they're well, Johnny has soccer practice and Timmy, and I'm wait, we can't put that fully on your cash flow, because that's not something you can own fully. So I think really taking a step back and saying, okay, how does the household run? What are the things that our house needs to be successful week over week, month over month? And who in my nirvana should own these pieces? Because then I think you can walk into the conversation with you as a mediator carrier, me as a financial advisor, saying, these are the pieces I think I want to own. What would it look like if I own these and he owned these? It might change, right? There's going to be discussions, but I think it's so much better than that just popping up in a mediation, right? Who's going to pay for horseback ride? That's so expensive, right? Who's going to pay for that? All right, if we've at least come in with some ideas. So I think that's, besides really understanding your net worth, your cash flow, I think you really have to understand, or at least have some working knowledge of, how does this household run day to day? What do we got going on in here? Because it is all going to be peeled wide open in the mediation.
Absolutely. No, that's very helpful. And thinking about it from the kid's perspective as well, because, and there's different ways that can be handled. Like you said, sometimes people will just split those activities, the cost of them, and, each pay half of them. Sometimes there's an income differential, and so they'll pay their pro rata share of those expenses. Sometimes the logistics are just such that it makes more sense for one parent to be paying for this and a different parent paying for that, and it does depend on what that cash flow looks like. And the other thing that I've had many of my couples, especially my mediation couples, do is to keep a joint account and put money into that account, and then use those funds to pay for kid expenses. So there's lots of different ways that it can be accomplished.
I've seen that be really successful too. That way money isn't shuttling back and forth from hands. It's just the kid's account, right?
Yeah. So, I think it's just a matter of having the conversation and figuring out what logistically and practically makes most sense for each family. That scenario may not work for some, but it can work for lots.
Absolutely.
Well, Amanda, thank you so much for coming back and sharing your insight. I'm so glad we were able to have this conversation. And obviously, financial clarity is such a big part of the strategic process. For those listening, can you tell them how they can find out more about you and the services that you offer?
Yeah. So number one, thank you for having me. I always have so much fun on this. You can find me at wealthspireadvisors.com or amanda.campbell@wealthspire.com. That's my direct email. Or just calling in 410-988-9494. You'll speak directly with my receptionist, and she's wonderful, and she can help guide you right to me and to my team of all women who can help you get set up a meeting, and we'll talk.
Absolutely. Awesome. And for our listeners, if this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with someone who may be navigating divorce or who is trying to more understand their financial future. If you want to learn more about our office, contact us at our website, which is jacobsonfamilylaw.com. Until next time, I'm Cary Jacobson, reminding you that divorce doesn't have to be dramatic to be effective. Thanks for listening to the Drama-Free Divorce Podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to follow, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. For more resources or to work with us, visit jacobsonfamilylaw.com. Until next time, stay grounded, stay informed, and stay drama-free.